Chapter 35. The loss of the horses significantly delays their travel, but the group refuses to be bothered by it. But after that night, they decide to stick to major roads. They come across more travelers, traders, and the rare small caravan, but they worry less about being jumped. The aching feet return though, and in full force. They avoid the larger cities, preferably sticking to villages and small towns. None of them fear the cities, but they tend to be more hostile in nature when compared to the cities of other regions, at least according to Kanyu. He claims to have spent a few years in some of them, but when pressed for details, he reveals nothing. 2 days away from their ninth Black Night, through Dorpen, the group creep on the contested border of Dorpen and that of the Amazonians, and their goal. After Rosner made his vow to the Sphinx, she told him they needed to seek out the Amazonians. But they will be deadly, he remembers the Sphinx warning. They do not treat intruders kindly, especially males. The only greeting you will likely receive is an arrow in the chest. Rosner said he would take his chances, and he still believes it. They stop for the night, half a day's walk from where a hard border is formed between the two forces. Cyan, after coming back from talking with the barkeep, sits and relays this border is a narrow, clear strip of land over a day's hike long, pinched between the cliffs overlooking the southern ocean of the Isles to the north and the tundra land of Enteric to the south. So, what happens when we cross? Rosner asks, covered in mud and grime from travel and the arrival of Maris as she wakes from her slumber, casting a Sturm into a state of rest. They both still linger, fighting for dominance, but a Sturm, as Kisra has explained, is tired and worn. The room is mostly empty, save a few off-duty Dorpen soldiers with a dragon on the chest of their shirts, draped over chainmail. They themselves take a table near the back wall, next to a roaring fire. We pray to the Life-Giver that we find them before they find us, Kanyu mumbles. Unless someone else knows something I do not. Everyone else remains silent. All that brought them close to Klena is long forgotten. The painful, tiring days of walking has put them all in a sour mood. On more than a few occasions they have snapped at each other. Right now, though, they all want sleep. At least most of them. Between glasses, Rosner swears he spots Huon glancing around when he thinks no one is looking. But eventually, Rosner convinces himself he is seeing things. All of them have been fairly tense lately. A short while later, they all retire to their rooms. But Rosner does not fall asleep. How can he? They have been traveling for nearly a year to reach this temple of Savona in Pirellios, which the Sphinx says is the only way to contact the goddess. And the longer it takes, the more Rosner convinces himself he will be too late. Can he even be sure his brother is still alive? He has to believe it. Otherwise, what is the point? And he has not heard even a whisper of Asra. That too can be good or bad news. He simply wishes he knew both were safe. Eventually, his mind turns to the otherworldly. It has been a long journey before he left Ticthrim, since the Death King approached him. Indeed, it was only once, but it seems he is an important player in all of this. One that becomes more and more relevant the more Rosner learns. But the question remains, what kind of player is he? Pulfrey grew unsettled at the mention of him, as did this Phoenix. The Sphinx hardly flinched, but Rosner has a feeling it concerns her as well, and everyone else fears him. everyone else save Etheris. But he's an entirely different matter, or, rather, a different part of the larger matter. Etheris, at the mention of the prince's appearance, chuckled. He finds the involvement of the infamous, acclaimed deadliest being in existence to be entertaining. So, is the Prince of the Nine Realms not as evil as everyone else paints him to be? Or is Etheris crazy? Given his encounters, Roster is inclined to believe the latter. Yet, if that is true, then why did Pirellios help him when Etheris is the one that told Rosner where to go? And if Etheris is indeed helping him with good intentions, then why did he and Phoenix argue? No doubt the Phoenix knows much more than he gave. Not that it matters. Rosner is on his own way to rescue his brother. Anything and everything else comes second. Rosner is not sure how long he lays there staring at the ceiling, but at some point he hears movement in Kanyu's room on the other side of the wall. He lays there, uninterested, probably pacing around. Rosner recently caught onto the dwarf's habit of doing so when he is annoyed, stressed, angry. Practically anything that turns the gears in his mind. But then the one movement turns into two, then three. Shortly after, there is a sound of a struggle. Rosner bolts upright and strides to his sword leaning against a chair opposite his bed. He retrieves the blade from its sheath, then stops. He stares at the open window. The hand of his sturm blows a small breeze through the room. Rosner tightens his grip on the hilt and approaches the window. His eyes scan the room, looking for anything out of the ordinary. Of course, the faint light in the room makes everything look out of the ordinary, with strange, elongated shadows covering most of the space. Out the window is nothing but darkness, and the partial eyes outline trees and shrubs 3.5 strides below. He shuts the window and locks it. Then he turns to look at Kanyu's room, like he can see through the wall. Whatever happened, the noise has stopped. Rosner hesitates a moment about whether or not to check on the dwarf. In the end, he walks to the door and lays a hand on the knob and stops. The floor creaks in his room. Rosner turns around and bares his sword before him. He is met with a pair of green eyes attached to a dark figure silhouetted by the eyes. The woman, for the voice is explicitly feminine, says a series of strange words, and Rosner immediately feels drowsy. His legs buckle and his vision darkens. Rosner wakes up refreshed. The floor beneath him shakes idly, rocking back and forth, almost as if trying to lull him back to sleep. He might have, too, if he did not try to stretch and reposition himself. But he does try. He discovers his hands and ankles bound with rope. His eyes fly open and he sits up the best he can. He is definitely in a wagon. Outside, the wheels creak and the hooves thudding the ground suggest it is drawn by several horses. Probably 4, given the rest of the party is with him. Of course, this is only a guess. The wagon has a thick cloth draped over the sides, so only slits between the cloths reveal a wooden landscape. Though the canopy keeps most of the light off the ground, there is still plenty that comes through. The little light that enters the mobile prison is enough to illuminate it so we can see friendly faces begin to stir. "Oh, why am I bound?" The dwarf, who like Rosner, wakes up in a daze, but he quickly overcomes it and turns back to his grumbling self, his words perhaps more forceful than usual. "What is this? Where are we?" No one answers, either because they do not know or they do not want to say it out loud. Rosner has already satisfied himself with a conclusion, even if the conclusion itself is dismal. A conclusion that can lead to a variety of situations. Amazonians. It is not until they reach a small clearing and stop for a rest that Rosner's guess is confirmed, and the silent assumptions of the rest. The flaps in the back are tossed to the side to reveal two beautiful women in leather armor and dark green leggings. Both have a breast missing, and both bear sidearms and a quiver of arrows. The black-haired one watches the group with distaste, and the long brunette opens a small door in the bars to slide in some bread, water, and strips of meat. When the guard's eyes land on Rosner, her expression softens a hair. Then her green eyes move on. Rosner keeps his eyes on her, a turret of emotion and thought running through his mind. This is the one that was in his room, that sweet voice that put him to sleep. He shakes his head and forces himself to look at the food. She put an enchantment on him. He has never felt the effects of one before, but it is positive that that is what it was. Still, he looks back in her direction. The other girl closes the door. The two lock eyes again, and then the cloth falls between them. "Careful, boy," Kanyu growls. "You do not want to mess with her, or any of them for that matter." "I do not want to fight her," Rosner says defensively. "That is not what I was referring to." The dwarf looks at him, eyebrow raised. Rosner feels his face flush. "Oh." As they continue on their way, discussion of an escape attempt is talked of, but the general conclusion, against everyone's better judgment, is them being captive is actually keeping them alive. The forests of Dorpen have bandits and thieves, and the swamps and woods of Shenveir have small monstrosities. But here, the Amazonians. It may be true their reputation is exaggerated, but none of them feel the need to test it. They stay bound the entire trek, a trek lasting nearly 7.5 cycles. Food and drink never change, so none can say they starve, despite some, one dwarf in particular, arguing otherwise. And they are smart. Their captors never speak to them, never say a word while next to the cart, and place the cart at a distance far enough from the campfire that their words become inaudible. The last day of their journey is met with a mass collection of voices. It has to be the last day. This is the first day the group has come across civilization since their capture at the tavern. The volume of voices builds as they push forward. At some point, the hard-packed earth turns to cobblestone. The cart rattles more, and the horse's hooves give a sharp clack with each step. Further on, Rosner also hears something familiar in the background, a low, heavy rumble compared to all the feminine voices following their small train. What is it? They stop. Seconds later, the flap opens and blinds the group momentarily. A hush of the crowd follows, mixed with the creak of iron rubbing iron. Still in a daze, Rosner more so feels than sees someone enter the cage and start cutting the bonds around their ankles. He watches as one by one they are hauled to their feet and handed to another guard on the ground. Rosner himself is hauled to his feet, unnecessarily rough if he is to say anything, and is ushered to the back. Just before he is released to the woman on the ground, the one behind him leans in and whispers in his ear, "You are mine." He tenses. Green-eyed girl. The voice is sweet, alluring, but he knows what befalls those who listen to their words. It does not last. As he is exchanged, her words leave him. They begin moving to the front of the cart. Being outside, he is momentarily blinded again, but not so much that he is unaware of his immediate surroundings. He does walk a cobblestone path. Along its wide edge are buildings similar to the earth mounds back in Klena, all varying in size. Trees and shrubs intermingle with the mounds, creating a beautiful collaboration of nature and structure. Then there are the women. Droves of them line the street, all from different walks of life. But there does not seem to be much distinction between classes. Most are dressed moderately, with simple cloth and occasional embroidery, and none of them look overly thrilled to have them here. Rosmer feels like he is walking to his execution. They continue to follow the road as it gradually ascends a large hill. As they climb, Rosner realizes he knows that sound from earlier, the one that still rumbles in the background. It is the rumble of waves crashing into a cliff. Large waves. Standing tall and proud at the crest of the hill and justly on the top of the cliff is the only building made of stone, the temple of Savona and Pirellios. The structure is not huge. It stands only one story, and its girth is a good dozen or so strides. Double doors provide entry into the temple, and an overhang supported by fluted pillars wrap around it. All things aside, Rosner finds himself unimpressed. No power radiates from the temple. Nothing indicates there is even anything special about it, save it is the only one made of stone. But they do not make their way to it. Just when it is in front of the group, the guards direct them to the right, down a small dirt path, and up to the door of one of the hovels. They are ushered in, guided through the entryway into a hall on the right. A few doors down, a woman opens one on the left, and they follow. Inside, several candles light the dark recesses of the room, while a large orb, similar to the ones in the Phoenix's library, hovers in the center near the ceiling. There are several chairs, which the group are promptly tied to. Feet are bound to the legs of the chairs, and the rope around their hands is tied to a chain hooked to a loop in the floor. Then the guards leave. "I blame you," Kanyu growls, looking at Rosner, past Huhan and Cyan. "Do not start, Kanyu," Cyan intercedes. "We all know." "Know what?" the dwarf snaps. "Face it. The more we learn, the less we know. And if it was not for him showing up..." A side door opens. Kanyu cuts himself off, but he still glares at Rosner, and then Cyan for defending him. Walking towards them to stand in the middle of the room is a tall, slender, gray orc, like Huon. She holds herself with an air of authority, but does not dress it. She instead wears leather and leggings similar to many others. The difference is she wears the emblem of a star on her breast. She eyes all of them one by one, momentarily pausing on Huon. "I have had several reports of your like making their way through Dorpin. Now, usually this means nothing to me. However, how you came to be here does mean something. Indeed, it means a great deal. You avoided roads, major and minor populations, at least for much of your trip." Next to Rosner, Cyan shrugs. "There are plenty who avoid their population." "True," the orc says. "But the course you took is sacred. A path only a select group of individuals know." Kanyu scoffs. "Lady, we followed no path save the one that..." As he says the words, realization dawns on him. Slowly, the others follow his train of thought. "The one that Huon led us through." "Huon?" Kisra whispers from the other side of Kanyu. "What is going on?" The dwarf, now refueled, shouts, "I will tell you what is going on. The orc is a traitor. I figured it would be Rosner that would have us killed, but by the mother, it is Huon, after all the years." "You are incorrect, dwarf," The ore comes. It is quite contrary to your belief. Huon here, evidently, has saved all your lives, at least momentarily. She looks grimly at Huon. Is that not right, brother?